That was John Kember's Red River Rag, the score of which you can find in Pianist magazine issue 68. As the title suggests, this piece should be played in a ragtime style. Now, this was a form of dance music which is believed to have originated from the less salubrious areas of St. Louis and New Orleans at the beginning of the 20th century. Perhaps the most famous composer of ragtime was Scott Joplin. His Maple Leaf Rag became a relatively big hit for him about this time, which apparently greatly influenced other ragtime composers. The characteristics of ragtime piano music usually includes a syncopated right-hand melody with a constant striding left-hand accompaniment. That would sound something like this. With its origins in dance music and this constant driving left-hand accompaniment, ragtime tended to be more metronomic in its approach rather than being overly expressive, so the tempo stayed fairly constant throughout. Now, of course, the technical demands placed on the left hand were not inconsiderable. Thankfully, John Kember has spared you the difficulty of a typical left-hand ragtime accompaniment in preference for an easier beginner's approach. But it does help to imagine this piece having a more elaborate left-hand accompaniment so that you can articulate it in an authentic sounding way. For example, a typical simplified ragtime style accompaniment for this piece might sound like this. So rather than playing the left hand literally as written in the score with the sustained crotchets like this, I prefer to make these crotchets more detached. Perhaps imagine a tuba playing those notes, and you should find it a little easier to interpret them. Where there's a tied crotchet in the left hand at bar 6, I'd personally like to shorten it a little. And the quavers in bar 8, I keep legato except for the very first. Again, the left hand needs to be played at a fairly consistent level, but not with too much expression. Now, as far as the right hand melody goes, I feel a piece like this should be played in a more mechanical way. This isn't the expressive lyricism of a Mozart theme. This was music often heard in the background, so it had to endure the rigors of noisy bars and clubs. Musical subtleties would have been totally lost. So for authenticity, keep those semiquavers light but rhythmically accurate. Don't accent these syncopated push notes too much either. Now, as far as the fingering goes for this piece, many of the phrases fall under the hand quite nicely. So if you're intent on doing your own fingering, I'd suggest concentrating getting the hand position for each phrase. For example, from bar 13 to 14, the whole hand can rest in one position. And then the next two bars, the hand moves down a tone. Then leading up to bar 17, a very similar situation. Now, there's also repeated notes. For me, I'd use the same finger to play them. Just keep this wrist loose. However, if you are having difficulties repeating those notes, try the following fingers: 4, 3, 2. For faster repeated notes, this kind of fingering can really help with the articulation of the notes, but it does take some getting used to. As far as dynamics go, pay particular attention to the crescendos and decrescendos in each phrase. For example, bar 13 onwards covers a wide dynamic range in a relatively short space of time. And finally, keep the pedalling to a minimum here. There's really very little need for it at all in this piece. Of course, if you were playing a full left hand ragtime accompaniment, the pedal becomes a necessity then. So if you've enjoyed playing ragtime, why not explore the music of Scott Joplin as a starting point? It's easy to get hold of the scores, and there are many available recordings. I've actually been told that Pianist magazine has featured a lot of Joplin scores in the past issues too. And who knows, maybe you'll get a job as a bar pianist.